Hey there, everybody. Welcome. I am going to, good. Thank you for turning off the waiting room there, Van. Welcome to our Nature Journal Educators Forum. If you're new to this, this is a place where we get a kind of a critical mass of environmental educators, homeschool parents, classroom teachers, informal educators together, and we talk about strategies and ideas for using nature journals in our teaching. And something we found is that very often some of the most interesting conversations that we have have been popping up in this discussion in this forum. So these are a lot of fun. We have not turned off your ability to unmute yourself. So at any point that you feel you'd like to engage in the conversation, you can either use the raise hand button or just unmute yourself and start talking. Or you can also raise your hand like that, and we will be trying to kind of watch the gallery for when somebody wants to share something. But welcome to everybody here, and we're really happy that you are with us. First, just to sort of check in with everybody, want to see how you're doing, and if there are any topics in the land of nature journaling that you as an educator are struggling with or finding are difficult for you. If so, maybe what we could do is just give everybody a chance, everybody a chance to, in the chat box, write in any topic that you think would be useful or exciting for this afternoon. And if there aren't any thoughts or ideas, then we will, I've got some other thoughts of things that would be kind of useful and interesting for us to discuss. But just let's give everybody a chance now. If there is something that you are finding challenging in, or perhaps really inspiring in your own educational practice as relates to nature journaling, let's give you an opportunity to share that in the chat right now. So we're just going to take 1 minute and give everybody a chance to do that, and go. All right, we've got a number of some interesting thoughts that people have dropped into our chat box, and maybe what we can do today is just a sort of a grab bag of brainstorming on different topics and issues, and I think that could be a lot of fun. the could Valerie, if you feel comfortable, could we get you just to unpack for us a little bit more kind of your experience? You've been doing a lot of kind of intro to nature journaling stuff, and you're saying that you're wondering sort of when and how to kind of branch that into a larger sort of going deeper, and maybe some thoughts about that. I think that might be a great place for us to start.
Well, I teach in the community. I don't teach in a school system. So I've been teaching a pretty good number of classes on introduction to nature journaling, and that's good. And the more people I can reach, the better. But that also kind of limits my audience because they only want to hear me say that X number of times, and then they're ready to move on to something different. But then I also don't want to stop teaching like the introductory things because I still want to reach people who haven't heard this yet. And one of my fears is that if I start teaching, the next step or the new stuff, then I will have an even smaller audience. I don't know, and maybe that's okay. But that's been what's going around in my head.
Yeah, I know that same thought. You're developing a program. You don't want people to be intimidated by, oh, I'm not ready for that. And those people that have come before, you don't want them saying this again.
Right.
And so how do you handle that? How long are your programs?
Well, again, I teach at a community college, but I do some things out in the community as well. So if it's a program like the local library, that's an hour and a half. At the community college, that's an hour and a half once a week for 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
I've got a few ideas on this, and want to hear. We really want to pick the brains of everybody else on this, but I'll kind of give you just kind of a grab bag of thoughts that I have, and then love to toss this out to our assembled crew here. So it's a specific challenge when you're teaching a class as opposed to having a nature journal club. The nice thing about the format of the nature journal club, so that you might want to sort of think about sort of the format of what you're doing. In the club format, people show up and you're going to be going out into a place and experiencing natural phenomena and recording those. And people can be of all sorts of different levels in that really easily, because most of what you're doing is wrapping around the phenomenon versus having you to be up there and giving a lecture about how do you look at squirrels, right? Instead, you're out there in the field and there's the squirrel and everybody's looking at the squirrel and everybody's writing something down about the squirrel. That's different than you being in the position of having to teach people, here's basics of nature journaling. If there's a squirrel in front of you, this is what you do. Mm-hmm. When I teach nature journal club events, I try to do at least 2 kind of mini demonstrations each event, and one is going to aim lower and one is going to aim higher. Or what I'll often do is do something that is sort of generally set for an introductory audience, but then have a little pearl, a little nugget in there for people who have been coming for a while, where they like, ooh, that's neat. So think of, I'd say the general framework would be to target people who are starting, but throw in some nuggets or pearls for people who have been doing this before. I try to do the same thing, when I'm teaching, if I teach another class on drawing birds. I've taught a lot of classes on drawing birds, and I try to think of like for people who have seen a lot of these before, can I put something in there that they haven't encountered yet? If you have, let's say, a series of classes, Nature Journaling 1, Nature Journaling 2, Nature Journaling 3, by the time you get to Nature Journaling 3, there are fewer people taking that, because they had to go through this, and then get to this over here. One way of around that might be, instead of having levels, having one class that is essentially like the Nature Journal Club format, where you are going out and you're doing nature journaling. And you'll drop in some pearls with that. And have that be something that you could take again and again. And then have a separate class that's going to prepare you to sort of dive into that. So that once you do that class, all the people who have taken your class, your introductory class, would be able to feed into that larger class and have a deeper experience that's more kind of connected with phenomena. So you'd be going to this park and looking at trees, and then you're going to go to the pond and you're going to be looking at ducks, as opposed to teaching people, I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of.
And that, and that actually, I mean, that's what we do. With the 6 weeks course, what I do is the very first class is indoors, because that's where I lay out all the basics. And then after that, the subsequent classes are out in the field, where we then dive deeper into some of the principles and some of the skills and that sort of thing. And I admit it's rarely the same thing twice, because I'm learning more, so I'm tweaking the class more, and we're going to different sites. I try to mix it up as much as possible. And then, like, in terms of a nature journaling club, I have founded a nature journaling club, but we are a group that we join together and we all work independently, and then we share afterwards. There's not, at least when we're out in the field, there's not a lot of teaching going on. And I honestly don't know if they'd be interested or receptive to that. That's something I could explore.
Yeah. What I find is that the best teacher is going to be nature, right? So the phenomenon that's in front of you, but just a little bit of structure to help people kind of get into it, and then you can back off, and people are kind of doing their own thing. So a little bit of structure to and scaffolding to kind of get people going. For instance, you might sort of suggest at the start of an activity, like, here we're going to just try to do this comparison thing. Like, we're going to be, try to get two, it's fall here in New England, and I'd like you to find 2 leaves that are interesting to you, and then we're going to compare them side by side right on your page. You can trace them and then start to just use your words, your pictures. If you've got colored pencils, that's great, to see what are the similarities and differences between those. So you give them a little bit of structure and then kind of let them go with the phenomenon. That's easier also on you, because you don't then have to be teaching for that whole time. Right. The leaf is teaching for most of the time, but you just gave a little bit of scaffolding.
Okay, that would work.
I might try that. When you get out into the field, I think it's nice to have sort of a general format of, you're going to teach a little bit, but the reason that you came out there is because nature's there, and you're going to just try to engage them with that. And then every time you go out to that place, the nature is going to be slightly different. And so even though you may go to a similar place, you've been to that arboretum before, but there's going to be different things happening. does anybody else have any other thoughts or ideas um, for Valerie on this topic?
Thank you, by the way.
Absolutely. Well, why don't we then, and Valerie, we'd love for you to sort of check back in with us. If you do experiment with any of these, let us know how that goes.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about, both Debbie was talking about drawing hacks, and Mary Larson was talking about kind of people who, usually what people have the biggest insecurity about is that drawing. And I was wondering if we might hear from just to, sort of to frame out what you're thinking about doing and what you're sort of concerned about. Maybe we could start with Mary Larson, if you feel comfortable fleshing out this idea a little bit more. I think that part of the solution is going to be giving some drawing hacks that Debbie was talking about. But if...
Well, yeah. So first of all, I wanted to say your answers to, was it Valerie? Were spot on, exactly what I needed to hear for my questions. We have a kind of new nature journaling group here, started co-founded by myself and another woman here who is actually a very heavy duty nature journaling teacher, but she's taking a step back from teaching. And I want our group to stay become vital. And so I'm happy to try and attempt to lead some outings, but I'm not a teacher. I've certainly learned a boatload, and especially in the last year, thanks to all of your online classes. And I've been mulling around. I'm very a little bit nervous about this, but I've been mulling around a lot about this, and went to the point of I even purchased your book. I know I did download it for free, but I wanted the hardcore thing in my hand to flip through. I know you've got a bunch of great activities in there that might come across as being for children, but I think they apply to anybody. But anyway, so in another Zoom meeting, completely unrelated to anything here, we were talking about things that bring us joy, and this one woman who is local said, well, I like to nature journal. And I was like, what? So I immediately reached out to her and said, are you in our group? And she's like, oh yeah. And she's like, but I can't draw. I'm terrible at drawing. So, initially, and I think a lot of people run into that. I can't draw. So that's their barrier. I was going to do exactly, I had already sort of formulated in my head that I was going to do, what you had said about kind of providing a little bit of structure, just I notice, I wonder, or it reminds me of words, pictures, numbers. And then I like the idea, whoever said it just now about drawing hacks. I think that's a great idea to like bring some handouts or whatever, and maybe leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. Something that I think might be really useful here is just to, I can give you kind of a flow chart of how a typical, when we're doing live events, how sort of the nature journaling events that we're doing, kind of how they would go throughout the day. And I think that just sort of seeing that kind of in a timeline, and what we would do when, would be, might be really relevant to this. And I'm going to jump over to my document camera. And let's see here. computer. Now we are recognizing the document camera. So I think about kind of the if I'm going to lead a nature journal club field trip, it can be either a full day or a half day thing. But this would be kind of, we usually would start at about 10 in the morning. And when we would do that, kind of, people are kind of showing up and they're just milling around in the parking lot, and some people are kind of off on their own. And, we've got some sort of central place. And what we would try to do is to, just while people are showing up, encourage everybody to meet a new person, right? So that you try to get people to meet one new person, learn their name, and learn at least one interesting thing about them. And what this does is it gets people kind of then buddied up, and people have at least one, if they're new, they've got one contact point. And if they have been here before, they've met somebody new. The more that you can make the relationships between people in the group sort of robust and strong, the stronger your whole group is going to be. And then we have some sort of, formal welcome. And a pen is dying. Let's try. So there'd be some sort of a formal welcome where I get up and say, "Hey, everybody, this is what we're doing, and you're going to give them sort of a map of the day, and sort of let them know that kind of what is going to be happening, and that everybody is welcome here." Often we would include a poem with this. And it's just, I like to, look through different poems and share one of those with people. And then what I usually do is some sort of small demonstration. And that can be as simple as, you could introduce people to, "I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of." Or you can say that we do this thing, "I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of." And what we want to do is just, let's unpack "I wonder." And, just let's take a look at this. Let's just look over there at the water on the bay. And in 1 minute, with the people who are immediately near you, you want to try to come up with as many questions as you can about that. And then discuss sort of, curiosity and wonder. Or it might be that the demo could be something like, we're going to be drawing a lot of ducks today, and here's a few drawing hacks. You show people not a lot of drawing hacks, but one drawing hack on drawing whatever sort of thing that they're looking at. And so to kind of give people a tool that they can put into their journals. A tool that I often bring out with me when I'm teaching, so I'll bring a whiteboard. And then when I'm out there with people, let's say we're drawing ducks, I'll discuss how you can sort of block in the head shape of a duck, and kind of what our, and now what we can do is we can kind of go around the edge of this pond, and if you want to do your own thing, you can, but what you can do is you can just focus on the heads of these, and you're trying to figure out, like, how is the head of a bufflehead different than say a canvasback. And so some little demonstration. And the nice thing about doing them on a dry erase board is that because it's with this kind of clunky pen, you don't feel like you have to be, sort of create great capital A art. All right, but it kind of helps you sort of be able to share a little idea. And if you're wondering about kind of examples of things that you could include in a demo, and you're thinking, but I don't know any things to do, any hold on a second. I'm going to just share a screen here for a moment. All right, so this is my website, and if you go under the blog here, under the blog archives, you get this. These are all these different classes that I've, all these different classes that I've taught on different topics. And I thought there were more. Let's see. Oh, there are more in here. Okay, they were just taking time to load. And what we can do with these is, if you're going to a farm and there are going to be horses there, you can, before the class, you can kind of go take a look at something like this, and this will load in just a second. So here is this, it's a little YouTube video about,
howdy partners.
See, and you get to see me wearing a hat, and I'm kind of getting into different aspects of horse anatomy. And you could just sort of pick one little part of this, and share that idea. All right, this one is probably not the best example, because this one I went into hyper anal retentive detail about all these.
Push the page up just a tad. Thank you.
All the way down to the toes.
All right. So so this everything on here is open source. And so you can use these ideas to teach a little mini lesson. You do too much out there in the field and people are going to get antsy, wanting to kind of go on to the next thing. But let's say you're out there with the horses. I might say, all right, we're here's like the 3-circle technique for drawing horses. You think of the upper chest and the body and the rump. Those are you overlap those as 3 little circles. You've got your basic frame for building up your little horse. So you show them just one little idea, and that will be enough for people to go. So you don't want to do out there in the field kind of a long lesson, but maybe a little 5-10 minute mini lesson is going to give people a jumping off place, and they've just learned a new skill. And then what we usually do is you say, and from here, after you've done your demo, maybe that's 10 minutes. The group can go one of 2 ways. So new people If they want to, they can tag around with you, and you'll just be doing your own nature journaling, and they can look over your shoulder and ask you questions, and you can also then meet those new people in your group. But people who have not done this in a long, who have been doing this for a while, they can kind of go off on their own and kind of get their own nature journal on with whatever phenomena and techniques really appeal to them. But then everybody is getting back together at lunchtime. And so you're going to be coming back here. All these people are going to be coming back together. And at lunchtime, 3 big ideas. The first is that lunches are so much more fun if you make it a potluck. So if you make your event a potluck, what happens is everybody sits together and they talk to each other. If everybody has their own sack lunch, everybody sits on their own log and the group splinters at that point. But a potluck pulls everybody back together. And that's really good for kind of developing your community. Another thing that you can do is, as everybody's eating, have a little table and just encourage people to, on that table, put out open journals for other people to share. And then as people are eating, they can also kind of walk around the table and sort of take a look at things at their own rate, and to get other ideas from other people and to sort of have a conversation about those. After you've finished eating, so that's a little journal share. And you start just with informally people being able to walk around the table and look at those things. You also can then as a group go over to the table and take a look at those together. And there as an educator, you're kind of helping point out to people like, oh, I really like this. This is an interesting idea that you showed here. What a great way of kind of presenting that. And look at like, oh, I've never seen somebody do this in their journal before. Tell us a little bit more about that. Oh, what a fun idea. I might try that myself. So you can really kind of highlight strategies that people are taking. If there are a small number of journals, then I usually make a comment or kind of interact with each one of those. If there's a large number, then I only will do a few, but don't give comments only on the ones that have the pretty pictures. Give comments about ideas, questions, and strategies of recording information on a wide spectrum of those journals. Then what I do is change pens, and then what I do is a second demo. And this one, you know, you're going to give people just a few more tricks. It could relate to this one that you've done before. You know, for instance, it could be, you know, if you went on, you know, close up on the birds' heads before, you could now sort of talk about, you know, the duck heads relative to the body and how to kind of block that in. Or if you're doing the horse thing, you could do, you know, just a little thing pointing out, you know, on horse heads. Isn't it interesting that they have this huge cheek masseter muscle up here, and how the eye, you see it as a circle from the side. On a predator, you'd be seeing a side view of the eye, but on an herbivore like this, you're looking at the side of the circle. So that eye shape makes a big, you know, whatever it is that you're kind of going to be pointing out to people, you just sort of a little demo, and then invite people to disperse again until you, you know, you want to give people a block of journaling time. And this could be, you know, we're going to meet in 2 hours. And at this point, you are going to lose some people from your group. But other people at the end of that, they're going to come back together. You're going to have one more journal share where all those journals go on the table, talk about a few more of the ideas. And it's, this gives people a chance to really kind of go deeper with their journaling by having more of kind of an uninterrupted block of time to get out there. A lot of people have come to do their journaling. So you want to give those people an opportunity to do that. Other people at this point, after lunch and after demo 2, some people are also just going to head home at that point. Don't feel bad if there's attrition right at this point. It doesn't mean you did something wrong. And then thank everybody for coming. And you're good to go. That's sort of a flow of the nature journaling field trips that I usually use. Evea, did I forget anything in sort of how we normally, are there other aspects of those that you remember that you think are also, we should sort of point out as strategy of making those discussion, those work?
I'm not thinking of anything specific, just that, correct me if I'm wrong, I could almost swear that we had a time or two where after lunch, like it wasn't just looking at other people's journals. Didn't we have a couple of times where we allowed people to pair up and look at each other's journals? Or am I remembering that wrong? I might be also getting it mixed up.
Did you like it when we did that?
Yes, I did. Because then it gives you time to really, really fall into somebody's journal entry. Because when you get to go around glimpsing the table, that's really fun. Because then we're encouraged, look for ideas that you can steal, but also remember to credit the people, which is kind of fun because then it's like, idea buffet. But then when you sit down to really, really tip into somebody's journal like that, it gives you time to really feel how a person's mind is working. And then that also gives you time to get closer to somebody. So then that way, that's, again, like Jack was saying at the beginning, that's how you boost community closeness. That's one thing I love about this flow chart that I'm noticing, is that a lot of the activities are around boosting community closeness, which I really appreciate. And then you can also have special times, like during the holidays, sometimes we'll do gift exchange where it's not specific to anybody. You bring a gift that is just, just for somebody, you don't know who it's going to be for. And then everybody kind of puts their gifts on the table or something like that. And then you just go select one, I think that's happened before.
I think what we did is you gave your gift to somebody else for them to give to somebody else.
Okay.
Right. So that you and that way the gift is even more from this kind of community. And so you're going to you bring a little wrapped gift and you give it to somebody and say, like, okay, find like this, think like somebody who, if they might be into watercolor, they might want this. And you look around and you find the right person for this. And so then so that little interaction between the person who's giving the gift to the person who's going to give the gift to the person who's, it just sort of adds this other kind of weird little element of goofiness into the whole thing. And it's fun. It's really sweet.
Another thing too, and this is something that I've seen Jack do that a lot of other folks can do, is that a really easy gift to give newbies, if they're interested, is to have orphan socks ready for them in case anybody wants the sock. I don't know where my sock went. I think my sock might be in the washing machine. Okay, Jack has the sock. Yes, you will know us by our socks.
That's
and
right.
That's the one where you can like wipe if you're doing watercolors and whatnot. So that's what comes to my mind, at least. Back to you.
That's great. Yeah, and sometimes I give out blue pencils to people. Thank you so much for that, Evea. A non-photo blue pencil. They're cheap, right? You can give non-photo. You can be non-photo blue pencil fairy, and you get a blue pencil, 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 and then everybody's got oh, this is really, really fun. Then they've got, you've given them a drawing hack. The blue pencil thing is maybe just a quick demo of what that is, because it is also a drawing hack. If you start drawing something and you are just, if you're drawing the duck and you kind of like, here's the top of my duck's head, then you go like, oh no, that's not quite what I wanted to do. That line might end up in the wrong place. But if you start with, this is the blue pencil, it's the Colorase copy knot non-photo blue pencil by Prismacolor. It's got a little eraser on it, and it's this super pale blue pencil that, notice you can hardly see what I'm putting down here, but I can do all this kind of sketching around here with it and just getting this to be just kind of the right shape. And then, it's easy to kind of, for me to block it in with this, and then I can come over that more slowly and deliberately. And I can now focus on what is the shape of what kind of quality of line do I want to get, because I've already figured out the sizes of the different parts. So you're dividing that process of drawing up into different sections. And so the hack that you'd be teaching them there is to start by blocking in with your non-photo blue pencil. And then they get a non-photo blue pencil, and then they're really happy. Yeah, you get a lot of goodwill for a 60-cent pencil. For other folks who've led groups, first of all, is this kind of discussion, is this useful for you, Mary, in sort of thinking about kind of organizing your program?
Very useful, thank you. I will say that most people are not the Pied Piper of nature journaling and aren't going to attract the crowd that you attract, or people that are going to want to do it an entire day. But I think I can, I'd already expected it would be kind of a small group and probably just a couple hours, and it can certainly be pared down, in both respects.
Yeah, that's right. And you, the leader of it, if you don't, another thing you can do is you can crowdsource a lot of the demo stuff. So as you look through people's journals at your first journal share, and you see that like somebody's like busting this move with some crazy watercolor stuff, you can say to that person like, whoa, that's really cool. Could you show us your kit? Or could we talk you into doing just a little demonstration of like what you're thinking about when this water looks like water. I'm struggling with my water. What strategies would you recommend for kind of helping? And so you get them to do teaching on your program.
Very good point. Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be all on you. So it becomes this more kind of democratic thing. Like if there's somebody there that's a really good bird watcher.
Yes.
Her, just like she's identifying these things by ear. Like just sort of take us on like, what are you listening for? Can you help us be able to identify 3 different birds by ear here? And then all of a sudden this birder is just like, oh, I'm getting a little bit of respect and spotlight here. I like this. And then they'll be sharing, like I'm hearing like, this is like, it kind of do, see how it kind of goes up there, right? That's this one. And then everybody's taking notes of that in a journal. And then you can crowdsource, like if there's somebody who knows insects, great. Tell us more. It doesn't have to all be on you.
Exactly. But again, I think you're assuming there'll be a crowd, and I think I'll be lucky if I get more than one other person, and I'm happy with that. I'm fine with that. I I've gotten a lot of great ideas. I just appreciated the first thing you said today, which was, you know, kind of club format versus class format, and just kind of identifying that the difference there. That a nature journaling outing is not a class. It can be a little bit, but it's, I think that in my mind, my priorities are more, I've done lots of classes now. I want to do more outings. So that's what I want to kind of guide, and I want to feel less of an imposter doing so. You know, I am not a teacher. I'm not a nature journaling teacher, but I learned a lot. So I think I can find a way to share some of that and kind of help lead a little bit. So thank you.
Yeah, that is, yeah. With the imposter syndrome with this, everybody has that. I have it too, and it's not going away. So we just have to get used to it. We're thinking like is there's like, some people have asked, like, you know, is there some credentialing that I could get to kind of, so that I would then be an official nature journaling educator? You know, there isn't any program like that, and you actually don't need that.
Thank God.
Yeah, if you need me to make up a little thing that says, like, you know you're a credentialed educator, I could make that up. But the most important thing is that you're just somebody with a little bit of chutzpah and some organizational chops to kind of get a few people together at the same spot on the same day. And then what happens is, when you go journaling together, when you're all in the same place and looking at the same phenomenon, and then you're seeing that these different people are noticing different things, asking different kinds of questions, and recording this in slightly nuanced different ways, it's really inspiring. It's really, really inspiring to be able to see, like, ooh, wow. This is, I could do, I'm just focusing on the duck, and you're focusing on the pond, and you're focusing on the cattails, the stages of the cattails blooming. That's really fun. I can do that too. So you can get all these other great ideas. And we're social primates. We love kind of doing things together, but we also kind of want to have our moment with ourselves. And this allows you to be in community, connected, and still being able to do your own thing. Another person was asking about, how does this work with intergenerational? Absolutely great. So do not make it a drop-off program. So if people want to come with their young children, they're encouraged to, and they should bring supplies for their young children. And but then the parent or the guardian is in there and engaging with them, and you will help support that parent and guardian and also interact with the kid. But you don't become a babysitting service. And very often the young kids are just really enthusiastic, and they're just ready to fearlessly go for it. Like, there's a waterfall, and it's pouring down on the top of 30 ducks. And then they're like, got their waterfall, they got their ducks. And the grownups will be looking over and like, and this kid is like already like half into their page. You're like, I'm cutting the waterfall on my ducks. And you're like, and the grown-up might be kind of going like, how would you even begin to start with something like that? And then the kid is just gonzo and going for it. And so they go like, well, if you can start, I guess I can too. And then the kids are also looking around at the grownups, and they're saying like, oh, everybody here has got a journal and everybody here is journaling. I guess this is what we do when we go out. It normalizes this behavior. And it's also then, it's not like the adult saying like, here's an activity for you, which I'm too good for. This is something that the kid is looking around and they're seeing all of these grownups all in with nature journaling, and that makes it easier for them to be all in with nature journaling. So I'll bring Evea in here. And yes.
Okay, so just wanted to mention something about kids. There was this particular time when we were taking a field trip to Stafford Pond. And I brought my son with me that day because I couldn't have any childcare. Well, sorry about the noise outside. I got super duper lucky because there was a zip line there and a few other people with children. And my son, he always has the option to nature journal with me, but he tends to be a more nature reluctant child. So I decided a while ago that I didn't want to force him because then that would make him nature aversive. So what I did was at the beginning, Jack was giving instructions and Logan was yelling for me to watch him on the zip line. And so to get him to stop yelling over Jack, I drew him on the zip line. And that was sort of how I engaged him. And that way I could both listen to Jack and write down notes of what he was saying, but then also include him in my nature journal. And so then what I could do is then he could come over and I could say, is this sort of what you were thinking? Is this how you would say it? And, and he would tell me if my diagrams were correct or if my notes for him were correct. And that sort of got him a bit more settled. And I'd originally had this idea too of making a scavenger hunt for him so that he and I could look for birds together. And this was kind of an advanced preparation, but it didn't really work. So I also want to recommend people borrow that too, is that you can also find ways if your kid isn't into nature journaling yet, then you can find other activities to include them, like scavenger hunts, or like you can even change this so it's not just like birds, it could be patterns in nature. So just want to encourage people to be really, really creative with how they engage their kids and to not feel ashamed if your kid's not yet into nature journaling. And then the reason why I showed you my drawing is because by doing that, even if he wasn't right then wanting to nature journal, he knows that he's in my pages. He knows that he's important. He knows he's involved, and that in future that leaves the door wider open for him to join in. So, and plus then just, the kids are like, what, you drew me? I'm in your journal? And so it just makes them feel heard, I guess. So I just wanted to pass on those suggestions to people with parents. And also the other thing that helped was that the other parents and I sort of took turns like watching the kids and making sure that nobody was fighting or anything like that. So one of us would maybe come over and, watch the kids while somebody else took a quick journaling break, and then we'd sort of switch out. We didn't have like an official schedule, which I think might have helped a little bit more. But if you wind up leading a group where it's kind of a regular thing, then you can make it, a regular rotation, or you can even do like a group activity where you're all drawing your kids. Anyways, those are some suggestions I wanted to pass on.
Those are really, really fun points. Thank you. Let's throw this open to the crew here. There's some wonderful thoughts and ideas that have popped up in the chat, and would like encourage people to to articulate those. If you say them out loud, then the people who are watching the recording also get the advantage of your idea. Let's bring in Debbie. Hey there.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to mention about the drawing hack thing, because I completely agree, and I use the idea of introducing a little tip at the beginning that is relevant to what we're looking at. That usually works really well, but what I was mentioning at the beginning when I was talking about a hack is the problem that the challenge that I'm having is I've got it works really well with some group. I work with children usually and some adults, but I've got one group of children and they're quite young, and most of them are kind of on they're on the spectrum, or they've got some sort of sensory issue. They have quite a lot of trouble. They don't like to be sitting around a table listening at the beginning, and they get very uncomfortable with that. And what I do is I do the lessons in my garden, which is amazing because I used to do them in my basement in a room, and then with lockdown I now do it in the garden, and it changed everything for that group because they started to really embrace it. They really engage so much better because in the garden they're allowed to they can just take a mat and go and sit anywhere in the garden. But my point was, I have this problem that they bring with them these rucksacks full of things like Pokemon manuals and cuddly toys that are generally unicorns, um, or something like like a fantasy. They're basically really into fantasy characters. So they have a little ritual at the beginning. Nothing wrong with fantasy characters. And they have a really cute ritual.
Yeah.
They have you'd get on well in the group. They have a
Oh.
really sweet ritual at the beginning. Oh my god.
Sorry.
You need to
Does this? I don't want to.
They have this really sweet thing at the beginning because they all know each other really well now, and they get out all the toys that they've bought and they introduce them all, and they show all the books that they've bought, and it takes quite a long time, and it's great, but it's, you know, it's an hour and a half, so that's like the first 20 minutes, half an hour. But then what I do is I have something like, so the garden changes every single week, so I'll get one thing out I'll pick something to point their attention to it. So just as an example of the issue is I got out bluebells, and I was showing them all the bluebells in the garden, and they're very temporary, the bluebells, so they were only going to see them that week. So I was kind of saying, you know, this is it. This is the chance to look at the bluebells. They won't be here next week like this. This is the peak sort of thing. And I had I had some tips of how to sort of look at the form, and I had some little sheets and different things. But they get quite uncomfortable quite easily if they feel pressured. So there's a girl immediately jumped up and sort of said, "Oh, I've got a hack for drawing a rose." Well, there's no roses at this point anywhere in the garden, and her hack it's just a YouTube hack where you do a spiral and. Yeah, I think I've heard you mention that sort of thing before. So that's what I was meaning by and because I know them quite well now, so I sort of really try to bring that in and embrace it, because it's her way of kind of taking, you know, getting confident in the group and feeling okay about the whole thing. And I know that in the end she will draw the bluebell right at the end, but probably only for 5 minutes. But then she's kind of engaging the whole group, and they're all like, oh, well, that's so much easier than what Debbie's asking. I mean, Debbie's asking us to do this really difficult thing, and she's just told us this cool hack. We're all going to go home with a picture of a rose. Like, who cares that there's blue? So I have to do this big negotiation about, like, this is a real live bluebell. It's only here now. And in the end, it's okay in the end. They always do it in the end, but it takes a lot of energy. And I'm just wondering if you can direct me.
that thing.
It's a spiral. They do that, and then they do like, it's even simpler than yours. Then they do that, and like yeah. But then but the reason that it bothers me is that I think they're missing out, and that's what they do at home anyway, and that's what they do when they play with each other, and it's trying to get them. You know, do you know what you are? I think that's my issue basically.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of thoughts on this, and one is that you have kids outside and they're drawing, and you have kids outside, they're drawing, and some of them are looking at plants. You are so way ahead of the curve, Debbie, right? That's awesome. That alone, you can hang up your hat and take a bow. You have kids not sitting in a basement somewhere. They're out in a garden with the sun streaming down around them and bees buzzing by. And some of them are learning to kind of look at plants around them. And that's great. So I would first just sort of notice how much is going right in this program that you're describing. And sometimes we'll have this goal of like how it should be, right? Yeah. And it's not like that thing that I'm envisioning. And I get, and it can be really frustrating for us.
And these are children who can't go. They're home educated children, so they've tried school, and so I know it doesn't work. I know it won't work if I try and push them the wrong way. I know it won't work. So it's kind of, they stay with it. It's an hour and a half. It's a long time for a
No.
young child, you know.
I like your ideas of kind of handling the stuffies by having this is my water bear. By
I didn't expect you to have this many cuddly toys.
That having a ceremony of some place where we're going to acknowledge the things that you brought, right? And now we're going to set those aside, and now we're going to be doing this other thing. If the stuffy comes with me, little Carolyn has her fruit bat. She's my daughter. She's 8. She has this stuffed fruit bat that if fruit bat could go everywhere with her, fruit bat would. And if she could spend her whole time just sort of having a conversation with fruit bat, she would. And so, there are times that fruit bat joins us on adventures, and we have adventures with fruit bats. And there are other times where fruit bat is going to, stay. Well, she's made a little backpack for fruit bat. Fruit bat has fruit bat's own sketchbook, but sometimes fruit bat is going to go do fruit bat's little project. It's sort of the same sort of thing. There's a little ceremony. We're now going to make a break from the fruit bat, but we're kind of acknowledging that is your little comfort piece, and you brought that along with you.
Do you think the same about like the Pokemon manuals? Have you come across that? Some of them, they want to spend the first half hour just literally copying out of, and then they sort of get more confident.
Yeah. What I would what I like to do is to have, for the nature journaling activity that I'm doing, just a little bit of I give them some structure around what we're doing. So for instance, there's the download of the How to Teach Nature Journaling book. If you go to johnmuirlaws.com, actually, let me just sort of show you. Should you want a free book, here's what we do. So we're going to go to johnmuirlaws.com. We're going to go to the store, and then the store opens. Here's How to Teach Nature Journaling, and I open that up, and I am going to choose. There's the soft cover print edition, that's $35, but the free single pages for home printing. If you want to print this out, you download that. If you want to view it on your device, the double page spreads are a little bit more convenient. So there's 2 versions of that, or you can get both of those for free. So you can check that out, and you just kind of go through oh, no, I don't want that one. I want this. And I'm going to add that to my cart. And then you just go to you would go, I don't want this, I don't want. Then you just go to checkout, and it kind of brings you through kind of the checkout experience, but you're not charged anything. So in there, we've got activities such as, if I say, like, here's this bluebell, and I want you to draw the bluebell, then some kids will be more into that, others won't. But we'll do things like, we're going to play this sort of secret plant scavenger hunt game. And the way you do that is you get to kind of look around the whole garden. Everybody gets to choose their secret plant. And what you're going to do is on your journal page, you're going to give us as many clues, like, so drawing a picture of it. Do they write? If they're writers, then they can add some written notes, any clues that they can to be able to spot that one. And then we're going to come back here, and each one of you is going to get a partner. And you're going to bring your partner over to where you were drawing your plant. And you win the game if your partner looks at your notes and goes like, oh, this is your plant right here, right? And so what I've done is I've taken this idea of, so I often will lead with a number of activities like that. Or everybody goes out and you find the most beautiful leaf that you can, right? And then everybody draws their leaf or takes notes on their leaf on their journal page. And then you put all the journals in a big circle and you put all the leaves in the middle. And then you take turns trying to take this leaf and match it over to this journal, and this leaf and match it over to this journal. And so what it does is it trains people really early on about like how to focus on that thing. Because for a lot of really young kids, they're the way, how old are your folks?
They're 5 to 11.
Okay. So in that, so you're getting kids right as they're going from that transition to the symbolic drawing. This is a symbol that means rose, right? So they've got, they have a symbol, and that means rose.
Yeah.
And then somebody else will say like, actually, I have a better symbol, and they can change their symbol for somebody else's better symbol, and they all want to learn somebody else's better symbol. But at a certain point, they realize that that doesn't look at all like that rose. And that's where they go from symbolic drawing into representational drawing. So you've got them over that span. At the start, sometimes with the kids, the young kids who are doing symbolic drawing things, you try to get them to do a representational drawing, and they're just like, what are you talking about, right? This is my symbol for my house, right? They live in a rectangular apartment building, and it has no chimney, right? But this is the symbol that means house, right? And the, but often with a little bit of structure like this, where you could sort of say like, you know, we're going to trace your leaf and then map the colors onto it. And any bug bites, we're going to put those in. All right. And then we're going to try to, then it's in this game where we're going to try to match it up with these other things. They're like, oh, they totally get that. And so that's, then you can lead them into this, this thing of drawing the bluebell. But I like to kind of have these games at the start where we're playing kind of a journaling game.
Yeah. I think that's a real breakthrough. I've been doing it more, I think, you know, through coming to these forums. I think it's a real breakthrough that, I just wanted to mention a real breakthrough that I had really quickly, is that I got them to walk around the garden, and they had to each choose one landmark place that we named after them. And but we sort of named it something a bit magical. So it wasn't just Debbie's bluebell, it was like Debbie's beautiful blue gems, or, you know, that kind of thing. And because, so they each had a special place, and then they had to show the rest of the group what that place, and it could be like a strip, or it could be one tiny thing. And then they had to draw maps of the garden, because I tried to do maps before and it was a bit dry and some of them couldn't really do it. But when we did a map showing their landmarks that they'd all found themselves, they got really excited. And I also said, you can put in a made up thing. So some of them put in like, somebody put in like a laser chicken with a rainbow. Yeah, and there was unicorns and
Laser
chickens. It was my garden, but it had these and then they wrote on the net, and it was a good group thing because they had to write each other's names on with like, because it was like personal landmarks. So that was the real breakthrough for me, because I could see that they were really properly engaged with that. So yeah, getting out the bluebells and just going, this is what we're looking at. It wasn't, the walk was the best thing that I've done. So that's just a little nice tip. I really recommend getting them to name their own landmarks. And a kid dropped his biro down a stream and we couldn't get it out, so they named that, you know, the ravine where Sam dropped his pen into the, you know, and they drew the pen on it. So that was a bit of a breakthrough for me doing that.
Yeah, and what you've done is you just made that whole landscape personally relevant. That's beautiful. That's wonderful. I love that. We have in that nature journaling book this idea where you are making a sort of you go on a hike and you're essentially making a treasure map, and you can give things all sorts of fanciful names. So it's sort of kind of along that line. I love it that you do that in your garden. Here's your laser chicken.
Thank you. That's really encouraged me to not squash it and just let them do it.
Yeah. So if I would say, it sounds like there's a hyper creative, playful group, and I would play.
Yeah, they're fun.
I would play with that. Yeah,
Jack,
Laura-
can I just add something? I can't do video because I don't have enough bandwidth, but so as a parent of a child with autism, things that I could specifically speak to is there is a provider called Paula Kluth who has written a book called Just Give Him the Whale. And it's the story about how she finally reached and got a kid to engage by using his interest in whales. And so I would go along with this. Let's encourage it. They've got the fantasy thing down. You could have them making Pokemon cards, like cards for things in the garden, right?
Mhm.
They could make it in that frame. If you're having trouble with them disengaging, a visual schedule would be really awesome. And if they want to do a lot of drawing in their Pokemon, with their Pokemon stuff or their unicorns or whatever, you could just have them say, you know, work on and we're going to bring one picture that we do at home to share because they can do those drawings at home. And maybe even have a separate journal for that. But the main thing is you know, these kids, all kids, but these kids have these things that we sometimes see as quirks because it makes them comfortable enough to be in a space that they don't feel comfortable in. You know, demands that aren't demands that we don't think anything of are really hard for them.
Yeah.
And so it's not, this is why they're not in school.
Yeah.
Right? Because the school couldn't figure out how to make them feel at home. And you want them to come away with nature is home. And so if what they do is, you know, every once in a while, they take one of their stuffies and they put it in nature and they draw a scene, great.
Yeah.
They're engaging and they're sharing. And the fact that they're sharing their interest in all that stuff, that is so awesome. So I think you're doing some great things. And just whenever
Laura, we've lost your audio.
can you hear me?
Now we can. Now we can. You're back.
All right, I gotta stand still.
We lost you at the word whenever.
Well, that's not useful. Anyway, whenever you have a should coming into your mind, thinking that you should be doing something, especially if it's about making them fit into the neurotypical mold, just take a deep breath.
That's really helpful. It's
and
I don't
think about it again.
It's because I don't want them to miss out, you know, that's the thing. But I that's really, really helpful. And I think I just need to take the negativity out of that. And sometimes the parents say those things as well. They stay and they say that as well, you know, oh, not the Pokemon, you know. So I need to kind of
give them a visual schedule that says, this is what we're going to do. We're going to share our interests and start narrowing it down. If it was 20 minutes, make it 15, then 10, you know, but they have a visual schedule. This is what's going to happen. It really helps for kids on the spectrum. It really helps for little kids, period. This is what we're going to be doing. We can anticipate it.
Thank you. That's so helpful. Thank you.
You're so wise, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lots of experience.
And thanks for the ideas in the chat. That's so helpful.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you, Debbie. Please say again.
I just said thanks for all the ideas in the chat. That's so helpful.
Yeah, the chat is blowing up with great ideas. Oh, and I see that Misty has her hand up. Misty, can we include you in this conversation?
Hey there. Yeah, actually, a lot of what I was going to say was said. But in addition to that, I was thinking, one, as Laura just said, taking the Pokemon and putting them with nature. For example, you know, here's Yu-Gi-Oh! And he's sitting with your Bluebell, would be one way that I might go about it. And I loved the idea of making Pokemon cards of the Bluebell or of even the Rose, even though it may not be there at the time. I could see you also going the direction of saying maybe, you know, thank you for the tip about the hack that you saw. If anyone wants to go in that direction, you know, let's talk some more about that. And if anyone wants to look at the Bluebell, we're going to have that over here. You know, just kind of going with the menu approach, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think what the instructor said about just them being outside in the first place and not in someone's basement, you're already winning. I think that's an excellent point. So if you can get, you know, maybe another 15% of them to actually engage with the Bluebell rather than, you know, what's bugging you, I think you're winning.
They're lovely. I mean, yeah, that's really positive. I think it's just it's my sort of limitations thinking. And to be fair, she probably said a rose because we were talking about flowers. She didn't say a unicorn. She said a rose, which is a flower, and she was linking it. You know, those. So. Also, Pokemon has a lot of nature references. I noticed, doesn't it? They quite often seem to have like trees growing out of their necks and things, and flowers and wings. So they are linked.
A lot going on in the brain.
Just embrace how much is going right in the program that you're doing. And it's really easy for us to kind of get some idea in our head of the way that this program should be going. And that takes us out of, I love what Laura suggested about that term should. We don't want to just should all over ourselves. And
that was funny.
You've got kids outside creating art in nature, and it's going to be okay.
Thank you. That's so helpful. Thank you. That's really positive.
I see we've gone 20 minutes over our time. We'll be closing very soon. Before we do, is there any other thought that people perhaps wanted to take out of the chat and into this conversation space? If so, please, you can raise your hand, something that you wanted to share with Debbie, or to extend or connect to an idea that you've already seen. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and I hope that today's discussion was really helpful for you. Ivea suggested that we kind of that this has been a really productive and rich conversation, and we might look for a chance to go deeper on that. And I think that's a really good idea. All right, I think we should. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for your insight, participation, and you all take care of each other, of nature, of our young students who are just making their way into this world. We're doing the best that we can with what we have. In so doing, we're going to make mistakes. And fortunately, all of us are born resilient, and it's okay. And as long as we're approaching what we're doing with a spirit of love, we're so far ahead of the curve.
you've got kids, again, outdoors in nature doing art, right? It's gonna be good. So thank you all, my friends. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.